The American History Film Project is a new nonprofit that grew out of a program in the Annandale area and has taken the country by storm, so to speak. They will be sponsoring an event at the City of Fairfax Historic Blenheim House. And today I have with me two historians. So here we have Marisa Williams. Marisa is a junior filmmaker from Columbia Elementary School. And she has entered the exhibition, and this is her second. Well, actually, this is the second time a Fairfax person has entered this national contest. And it's an exhibition that encourages youth to make films about their hometown communities. And so, without further ado, we're going to be showing a film clip from Marisa's work in a little bit. She did some research of her area of the Lincolnia, Fairfax area and dug into the African-American history of the area. So Marisa, tell me a little bit about what made you decide to pick this topic.
Well, I picked this topic because I love my church and I like to tell people about my church, and I just love my church.
That's very, very cool. And did you hear about the contest? The founder of the American History Film Project is Martha Barnes, and she's an Annandale resident. And the first exhibition was held at the George Mason Regional Library down there in Annandale. And then the second exhibition was held at Annandale High School. But now we're going to be in the city of Fairfax. And you'll love the historic Blenheim House. So, it's a wonderful venue, and we're excited to be there, to be invited there on May 21st. And in your case, you ran into Martha at school, and how did you hear about the project?
Well, she said, Marisa, would you like to talk about your church and talk about your church? And I said, yeah, because I know my mom, she would love it, and she'll because she loves to tell people about her church, and she just said it.
Very cool. Well, what's unique about Marisa's church is it's a historic church. It's at the crossroads of Columbia Pike, and it's near where a lot of folks might know where the Harris Theater is. But the name of your church is?
Mount Pleasant Baptist Church.
Right. So Mount Pleasant Baptist Church is a historic African-American church, and we'll see a little film clip from what Marisa was working on. But there's a historic cemetery right behind the church. And I think it'll be rolling, yes.
Hi, my name is Marisa. Mount Pleasant Baptist Church was founded in 1867 by free slaves who traveled to Alexandria, Virginia, seeking a new way of life. The good character of these freed men impressed a wealthy landowner named Charles H. Brown. He sold them 60 acres of land on which to build their homes. He then donated 1 acre of land to build a church for services on Sunday and a school during the week. This land was deeded on September 7, 1867. Mount Pleasant Baptist Church started as a log cabin. Then this structure was built in 1931. Now known as the Pinkett Shepherd Chapel. Services are now presently in this sanctuary, completed in 1977. Let's talk about the cemetery.
The cemetery has two parts. The Independence Cemetery, which is right here behind the Pinkett Shepherd Chapel, was also deeded in 1867. This is where the oldest graves are. The oldest headstones is at the Reverend Pinkett. The rest of the cemetery behind the church was deeded to Mount Pleasant on April 7, 1986 by the Golden Willow Oddfellows Lodge. The cemetery is still being used today and is the final resting place of a lot of current members.
You steal away your secret.
This is my church's historical cemetery.
Very cool.
Some of them, they had old pastors and military people in there, and they just had lots of people, and I thought it was cool because some of them, they were really old, that you can't really see their names, and that's how old they were, and I thought it was just cool to be learning about it too.
Yeah, very cool. Now, from what I studied, is they have some from the 1700s and 1800s, because what happened was a lot of the slaves from the Alexandria, when they were set free, the first thing they did with any extra money or inheritance that they got or gifts that they got when they were set free is they moved to that area of Lincolnia and Annandale, and they moved in that part of Falls Church. So that's what's neat. So they were given, some of them were given the land as gifts, and some of them had to buy the money with the very little money that they saved. They bought the land, but they were actually out there before a lot of people are out there now. So they were the first ones out there, and they farmed, and they made it happen. So what's neat is that the church building is relatively new, but it used to be a log cabin.
Yeah.
So that, I like that about your film. Now, you said that's a first draft of your film, and you made a new one last weekend that you'll be showing in a couple of weeks. But you said you were able to interview some folks who were historians, and tell me about that. Well,
some of the people I interviewed was Trustee Gordon. He we interviewed and videoed on. He talked about the history of the church, and one of the parts was, I said to him, what was the best part about the history of the church? And he said, one of the parts, he said, well, it was feeding the homeless, and it was the downstairs, and they had, like the homeless, they used to lay blankets out for them and feed the homeless. And he said that when he was little, there's a nursery, and he said that they had a bath, because in the main chapel, there's a bath in the back, and that wasn't there. So there was a nursery in the back, and there was a tub there, and he got baptized there. And I thought that was cool.
So they did the baptisms and they took care of the homeless. That's awesome. So that's neat. And there was a lot of, and from what I understand too, is that there's an education component. A lot of folks got to learn how to read, and so the church became an education center for a while too. So that's exciting. So now, Andrea, tell us a little bit about the Blenheim House, where the event will be held.
All right. Well, historic Blenheim is not unique, but in this area it is. It is a Union soldier graffiti site. How many people can say that? It's basically, this was a house that was built about 1859. It was built and owned by a man who, Albert Wilcoxon and his wife, Mary, they were secessionists. They also were slaveholders. They owned 6 enslaved people, and unfortunately, that's the part of our story we know so little about. And I'll get back to that in a second. But what we do know about is what happened to them during the war, even though we don't have letters about them. The family, we do know that they ended up leaving after some damage was done to the house, after it became, Union troops came in, and eventually Union troops controlled the area. When they came in and controlled the area, over a couple of years' time, they wrote all over the walls of the house. And so that's where we get our graffiti. And the house was lived in by the same family until 1997. And then the city of Fairfax purchased it in 1999. Though it went from a 12-acre, what is now 12 acres, that's only part of what was a 367-acre property.
Right.
We have so much information on the soldiers because of archival information, bits and pieces about the family through legal documents and such, but the hardest and most frustrating part is not knowing about those who were enslaved there. We know from a slave census that there were 4 men and 2 women. We know their ages. We know their, obviously their gender and whether they were black or mulatto. But other than that, we don't know who they were.
But sometimes you have actors come to the house and you have reenactments. And tell me about the reenactments coming up, because what's neat about this exhibition is you're being brave, because you're one of the first ones to enter this year, and other kids can come to the museum and with the camera and shoot history by shooting the reenactments. And they can interview someone who's an actress acting like a slave, and they can interview someone who looks like a soldier, and they can take different angles of the stories.
Exactly.
Nurses, medics, so forth.
Well, in the our modern building on the site, the Civil War Interpretive Center, where we have a gallery and actually replica of the best graffiti, which is up in the attic, we have a room where we hold different talks and such. And we just the other day had a woman named Lillian Garland who was portraying Elizabeth Keckley, who had been a former slave and was the seamstress and friend of Mary Todd Lincoln.
To watch.
And
good.
When on April 30th.
We need to go, but we
Okay.
will be back. We will come back. I want you both to come back next month. So when your film is finished, I want you to come back and show that to us, and it'll be at an exhibition at the Blenheim House May 21st. And we're looking forward to seeing you there.